Hi, Alireza. Thanks for joining me today. Let's get right into it. So let's start with your background. What got you into crypto? Why crypto? Why the regulatory side of it? And yeah, please let me know.
Yeah, thank you for having me here, first of all. When I started with crypto back in 2013, 2014, I was a young lawyer working on regulatory topics like licensing issues, and I didn't want to do something plain vanilla. So we had a project with the European Commission. It was called Banking Without Banks. So I was supposed to look for products which could provide banking services, but without having a bank. So I did a research for 2 weeks, and I came back and I said, I don't know what it is. It could be digital gold or digital payment. It's called Bitcoin. And then we looked into that, but it was 2014. It was way too early. And we saw it's a very interesting product. We didn't do any services, any legal services, any advisory services. But I was allowed to look into the technology, and then it all started in 2017 with the ICOs. And at that time, I was already familiar with the technology, and this helped me a lot.
But now we have MiCA, right? MiCA is everywhere. Everybody is talking about it. And I know that you know a history of MiCA pretty well, right? Maybe knowing that also leads to some exclusive insights, right? Maybe there are even misconceptions associated with it.
Yes, absolutely. So when I was back in the days a board member of the so-called Blockchain Association in INATBA, which is a blockchain association of the European Commission, we were lucky enough to work on a first draft of MiCA. So we knew exactly how the first draft looked, and we gave feedback 170 pages on what to change inside the MiCA text. And we knew exactly what the idea was of the MiCA text. And such as in the early days, the regulation of stablecoins like e-money token, as reference token, they brought it out to stop Facebook, Libra, Diem. But this is something which is not really written black and white in a text. You learn that if you talk to people in the background, and then you understand really why this law was brought up and what was supposed to be done with it. And this helps a lot now with the MiCA text, and also to understand there will be MiCA 2.0 coming, definitely.
Interesting, and we'll come back to this. How connected are you to the leading projects in the space? And maybe there are some key insights associated with them that you are actually fascinated with.
Yes, so I'm now doing really 99% of my projects with crypto. And with crypto means I either advise banks, asset managers, fintechs, but also companies which are not regulated like Fireblocks, who provide the infrastructure for doing crypto custody. So I know many big players, not trying to name them all because some of them are confidential, but by topics. So I'm involved in major projects such as tokenized money market fund. How to do that, how to have it as a product which is not MiCA regulated. How can you do this? I'm involved with many DeFi players, so DeFi players which are active, 1inch, for example, I can name, who are active and they're doing projects, and how they can do it without the need to have a license in Europe. This is possible. And some other players, I was fortunate enough that I worked with all the major exchanges like Binance, Coinbase, even FTX. So even I saw the bad sides of crypto in the early days. And hopefully this helps me also to not letting others do the same mistakes again.
All right, and I know for a fact that people sometimes confuse MiCA and MiFID. Could you please elaborate on that?
It is basically very simple. I mean, MiCA and MiFID looks very similar because the people who created MiCA, like ESMA, European Commission, EBA, they did the same job with MiFID. The difference is what kind of instruments it's covering. Whilst MiCA is purely on crypto assets, MiFID is on financial assets or financial instruments. And financial instruments under MiFID, you can say, is any instrument which gives to the token holder yield or gives interest or, let's say, capital gain. Whilst MiCA covers currency token, where you also get a gain, but you're not getting it from the issue of the token. You get the gain because you make a goods transfer. You buy it cheap and you sell it expensive. But this is not a capital gain from the issuer. This is profit you made yourself. Mm-hmm. So there are some gray areas like staking. Is staking inside MiCA? Or is it maybe inside MiFID? But you could say as a rule of thumb, if you receive an interest from the token issuer, you are in the MiFID environment. If you get a token where you get a service or you can do a swap by yourself and make profit by yourself, you're rather in a MiCA environment.
And what about the future? Let's come back to that. You mentioned MiCA 2.0. That's something definitely interesting.
Yes, so if you look inside the MiCA text, there's some, like, we can call it elephant in the rooms, which are not covered, which is DeFi, like decentralized finance, if it's fully decentralized. And we have like some activities like crypto lending, which is not covered by MiCA neither. So there will be needs to have MiCA 2.0 to cover this. At the same time, we see that the stablecoin regulation right now, it is too strong. It is too hard on the players. We see in the US with the Genius Act and some other laws that you can do the business in the US with much less regulation, the stablecoin business. So we are afraid that companies, good innovative companies of Europe, will leave the European economic area and go to the US. Therefore, we also need the MiCA 2.0 to make the stablecoin regulation less strong.
Interesting. Do you think that then, basically, that old notion that Europe regulates and then the world learns from it, learns those valuable lessons and then implements, now those rules are being rewritten? Is that true?
It could be, and there is really the risk. It is something very new because the Genius Act in the US just recently came, and we see the move to the US. And there are definitely voices within the European supervisory authorities, which is ESMA and also the European Commission and even EBA, which say we must look what is happening in the US and most likely loosen up the regulation on stablecoins. For instance, the prohibition on giving yield to the token holders. Maybe there's some other way how we can deal with that.
Interesting. That's something definitely you can't learn on the internet. Yeah, you need to be right in the field, in the trenches, from an interesting side, just such as the regulations. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you.